So the story of the Parsha, just to get into this class tonight, just to refresh everybody's memories, the story is about the spies. So the original plan of creation was that God takes the Jews out of Egypt. They were slaves in Egypt. They had been slaves for 210 years. 49 days later, they go to the giving of the Torah. And literally a couple days later, they should go straight into Israel. Israel, from where they were in Mountain of Sinai, was an 11-day journey, no more. So they should have gone straight into Israel. And what should have happened is Moses would have gone and led them into Israel. Moses would have been the Messiah. Moses would have been the one who built the temple. And that's it. There would be no exile. There would be no Roman exile. There would be no Babylonian destruction of the temple. There would be no exile, there would be no anti-Semitism, there would be no Hamas, there would be no Hezbollah, there would be nothing, because Moses would be the Mashiach. We would live forever and ever. That was the original plan of creation. But the Jews messed up in this week's Parsha because Moses sent spies to spy out the land. He handpicked the best spies. And he told them, please go spy out the land and let us know how we can conquer, how is the best way to conquer the land of Israel. So Moses sent spies, 12 of them, handpicked the most righteous people that there are. And they were there for 40 days and 40 nights, traveling the length and breadth of Israel. And they came back and they said that Israel is a land full of giants. It's Eretz Ochelet Yoshvea. It's a land that eats its inhabitants. We saw so many funerals over there. The fruit is so big. It's a horrible, horrible, horrible land. And we can actually understand what they're saying if we actually translate that into 2024. What they said was, Israel's a land that in the north you have Hezbollah, in the south you have Hamas, you have the West Bank, and you have all the enemies of the entire universe who hate us. You have anti-Semites across the universe who don't want us to have Israel, so we don't want to go there. So after 40 days and 40 nights, they came back and they made a big conference with all the Jewish people who asked them, and they said, we cannot go up there. And the Jewish people cried. They cried and they cried and they cried. And they said to Moses, why are you taking us out of Egypt to kill us by these giants? That night was the night of, anybody know? Date? Jewish date? Was Tisha B'Av. It was the 9th of Av. And God said, you cried for no reason on this night. I will give you a reason to cry. And all the bad things that happened throughout history happened on that night. The destruction of the first temple happened Tisha B'Av. The destruction of the second temple happened Tisha B'Av. The Spanish Inquisition, by the way, we were expelled from Spain, Tisha B'Av. So, and a lot of other stuff happened on the 9th of Av. That's how it happened. That's just what happened. So, welcome. Take a plate over there, take some food, and come sit down. So, Tisha B'Av, see it right here if you want. Tisha B'Av was this date on the calendar. This is what happened. So God decreed that generation, 600,000 Jews, shall die and perish in the desert. They will remain in the desert for 40 years. Every single year on Tisha B'Av, yeah, you have a question? No? Every single year on Tisha B'Av, the Jews all dug their own graves. They went to sleep in their graves, and 15,000 Jews died on Tisha B'Av. The following year, all the Jews remaining dug their own graves, they went to sleep, 15,000 Jews died. What's 15,000 times 40 years? 15,000 times 40 years? 600,000, very good. On the 40th year, they dug their own graves to Tisha B'Av and nothing happened. So they thought they miscalculated the date. They did it the 10th of Av, the 11th of Av, the 12th, until they reached the 15th of Av. Come have a seat right up here. Until they reached the 15th of Av, and they realized that the decree is over. So this is the story we read in this week's Parsha, which has repercussions till today. That means today we are in exile. Today we have sorrows, we have trouble, we have pain because of the mistake of the spies. Okay, now let's just analyze this just a little bit. What was the spies' mission? What were they told to do? To report. That's exactly what they did. They came back and they reported. They said the land is bad, that Israel is bad. By the way, there was a spy in 1973 by the name of Marwan Ashraf. Does anybody know the name? Marwan Ashraf? In 1973, there were many. There was a war of attrition, 1970, 1971, right? Israel had won the Six-Day War. 1973, the Yom Kippur War broke out. There was, in 1971 approximately, there was a guy by the name of Marwan Ashraf. He was the son-in-law of the Egyptian president. And this guy went to London, to the Israeli embassy, and he offered his services to be a spy. He made up the story. He said, I need the money. And they paid him $100,000, which is a tremendous amount then, and he kept on feeding them information. He gave them incredible information, like there was a Soviet plane that came into Egypt, they got whatever, he gave them good information. And he warned them in 1972 approximately that Egypt's about to attack, and Israel mobilized all their reserves, and for Israel to mobilize all the reserves is a big deal, as we know now. The reserves are the people who are in the stores, the storekeepers, the owners, the business. And then he told them again in 1973 in the beginning that Egypt is about to attack, and Israel again mobilized their whole and nothing happened. On Yom Kippur, 14 hours before the war, he asked his handler, that's the door. On track, yeah.
Yeah, he might have just texted me about coming in.
So they're upstairs. So if you go outside, just grab them from upstairs. So in 1973, 14 hours before the war broke out, he asked his handler for an urgent meeting with the head of the Mossad. The head of the Mossad flew specially down from Israel to meet him, and they met 14 hours before the war broke out. And he said to him in the following words, he said, "The war is going to break out tomorrow. Come, take some chairs, some food over here. And there's plenty of chairs right over here. Let me get you some chairs over here. Pass these chairs down over here. All right, come. Plenty of chairs. So grab a plate, plenty of food. Right, come. So Marwan Ashraf told the head of the Mossad in a private meeting, he said, war is going to break out tomorrow. And they asked him, how do you know? He said, this is what's going to happen. That's the door again. Yeah. He said, war is definitely breaking out.
What?
Yeah, yes. So the head of the Mossad went back to Golda Meir, who was the Prime Minister of Israel, and he said to her, war's breaking out. And what did they do? They what? They didn't. Anyone watch the movie Golda or something? You watch the movie? They didn't do anything. And if Israel would have taken that information by Marwan Ashraf and done something, thousands of lives would have been saved. But they didn't do anything. They didn't do anything. And it was one of the greatest tragedies of the war, that they did nothing, right? So, and there's a movie about it, right? You all watch the movie. So, what was the reasoning? So first of all, by the way, Egyptian intelligence, till today, claimed that Marwan Ashraf was a double agent, that they sent him to feed information to the Israelis, and he specifically told them twice before, like crying wolf, twice before we're about to attack. So that when it really happens, Israel does nothing. So he's actually claimed as a national hero by the Egyptians, and the Israelis also consider him, so he's actually, by the way, you can Google this is Googleable. They both sides claim that he was their spy, double agent or triple agent or whatever it was. He did a good job. I mean, if you just, normally both sides want to kill you. Yeah, both sides thanked you. So, getting back to the story of the spies were asked, please tell us what's going on in Israel. That is exactly what they did. They reported back, and they came and they said, Israel's a land that ochelet yoshvet, eats its inhabitants. And if you think about it today in 2024, that's exactly what Israel is, so to speak. So what did they do wrong? So I'm going to give 3 layers of information over here, which is pertinent to our lives today as we face protesters in Los Angeles, in New York, in South Africa, Cape Town, Johannesburg, everywhere in the universe, as we face these protesters and we face anti-Semitism, which is rampant. this will allow us a little bit of information into this. So the most simple explanation of what happened with the spies is as follows. The spies did not err. They did not make a mistake with any of the information that they gave over. Their mistake was in the way they gave over the information. Meaning like this. The previous parsha we read about the story of Miriam. Miriam one day sees two prophets who are prophesying. And she hears Moses' wife say, I feel bad for these women. And Miriam asks her why, because she says, these wives will no longer have intimacy with their spouses like my husband doesn't have intimacy with me. So Miriam hears this information. She calls a family meeting, an emergency family meeting. Aaron, Moses, and herself, 3 siblings. And she says, Moses, we heard that you are not intimate with your wife. What is going on? And Moses didn't say a word, but God came down and he said that Miriam, you spoke badly about Moses, and now you have tsarat, leprosy, you spoke Lashon Hara, you have to be banished from the camp. By the way, Miriam, this story of Miriam we read every day of our lives. It's one of the 6 remembrances. There's 6 big remembrances, 6 big things we need to remember every day, like the day we left Egypt, the day we destroyed Amalek. Miriam's story, we need to remember. Why? Because Miriam didn't err in what she said. She erred in how she said it. What should she have done? If you have a problem with your brother Moses, what should you do? Call Moses for lunch at Reserve Cut and say, Dear Moses, I heard through the grapevine that you are not with your wife, that you kind of divorced her. Would you like to explain to me? I mean, maybe. She erred by calling a family conference. Like, what? Why would you do that? It's like when you hear something, you know what you want to do? You want to post it on WhatsApp and post it on Facebook and post it on Instagram. Instead of dealing with the problem, you're making the problem bigger. But Miriam didn't err in what she said. What she said was good. She wanted that Moses should have more children. You remember when she did it in the beginning, when she was 6 years old, and her father Amram, who was the leader of the Jewish people, separated from his wife because he didn't want to bring children into the world. Remember, the Hitler of that generation, Pharaoh, decreed death upon all the firstborn sons. Right? So what do you do when you have a Hitler? Some people say, well, I don't want to have any more children. I don't want to bring children into the world that will have such brutality and such cruelty. Amram said that. So Miriam, who was 6 years old, went to her father, who was the leader of the generation. She said, you are worse than Hitler. You worse than Pharaoh, because Pharaoh kills the firstborn sons, the male sons, and you kill the girls and the boys by not bringing them into the world. You kill them in this world and the world to come. So Amram listened to her. He remarried his wife. All the Jewish people then remarried their wives, and Moses was born. So she didn't err in what she said. She erred in how she said it. The spies, the same thing. The simple explanation of the story of the spies is, they should have gone over to Moses privately and said, Moses, we don't think this is possible because this is too much. There's giants there. It's too much. That's what they should have done. Okay, that's just the basic explanation. But now I want to get some depth into the story, okay? So the topic of the class for those who just came is, what is the biggest crisis facing world Jewry today? Anti-Semitism? Protesters, we are afraid. We are afraid for our lives. How do we deal with this? Straight from the Parsha. And let me just start with the story. So as you know, this is a Belev Echad Torah class. Everybody's familiar with Belev Echad? So there's a soldier by the name of Amitai, who I actually spoke to today. I met him in May. He was in New York on one of our Belev Echad trips. Whoever was around, we did some young professional Shabbat dinner then. He was around. He was then. So a lot of you probably met him and heard his story. But to refresh, on October 6th, Amitai arrived to Israel. He had already been discharged from the army. A lot of Israeli soldiers, after the army is so intense, they go for vacations in Thailand, the Far East, or South America. So he went to South America, and he was touring around. He had served in a special unit called Maglan, and he returned to Israel on October 6th. October 7th, he wakes up. And I heard from many American friends of mine who happened to be in Israel October 7, when the war broke out and all hell broke out, what do? They ran. Where did they run? To where?
To their bases.
To Ben Gurion Airport. Get the first plane out of there. That's what a normal person would do, right? But I mean,
You mean the Americans that were visiting?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
I
Yeah.
think we
Yeah.
thought you meant the soldiers.
Yeah. Correct.
Okay.
But the soldiers who were there, or the ex-soldiers, by the way, this guy did not have to go fight. He was already out of the army. But he ran to the south. He joined whatever unit he could. It was a little bit pandemonium going on over there. And he fought hard, and he saved a lot of lives on that day. He continued fighting. And in November, he was with the Maglan unit, and they were combing through houses in this neighborhood called Sa'ad Shaiya. It's a very dangerous neighborhood. And one of the homes that they were combing for terrorists, the terrorists had planted a 400 kilogram bomb in a tunnel. They waited till the soldiers were right there and they detonated it. There were 10 soldiers right there. 4 of them were killed immediately. And 6 of them were injured horribly, including Amitai, who lost 2 of his legs above the knee. And his eye was injured horribly, shrapnel all over his body, including something in his hand. His whole entire hand had a hole in it, had to be grafted. Very, very, very severely wounded. When our team met him in the hospital, you would think this guy would be depressed and down, morose. He was so happy and with a smile on his face all the time. But what we did with this soldier is we brought him to New York for a 10-day trip to enjoy, to have fun, just to, enjoy himself. And one of the places we brought him was to NYU Medical Center. NYU has something called Center for Amputees. Center for Amputees. Welcome. So we'll get you some chairs. We have a lot of chairs here. We'll just have to pass them along your way. We'll get them to you. So NYU has something called Center for Amputees. Are there still plates over there? We have plates, right? Okay, good, perfect. Amazing, thank you. So, NYU has something called the Center for Amputees. In America, can anybody guess how many amputees there are? Take a rough guess. There's 2.2 million amputees. In Israel, it's a couple hundred, there's not too many. Israel never had the ability, the capability to deal with them on a level, on a scale like America has. There's 2.2 million amputees. By the way, most of the number one reason for American amputees is actually not army, not military at all. It's accidents such as boat accidents. The propeller on the boat? That's like a big cause for amputees in America. So America has developed something called the Center for Amputees, where doctors get together and they treat amputees. Israel's amazing at a lot of stuff, trauma, plastic surgery, burn unit, but amputees is just something that they still need to learn. So we brought the soldier to the Center for Amputees, to a doctor here. He examined him, and he said he's a prime candidate for something called osseointegration. Osseointegration means that they're able to install a rod into his limb, and then they put a prosthetic there, which is there, and it gives him the ability to walk and run, and it's unbelievable. It's actually incredible. The sheer technology which exists here is super, it's beyond. So this doctor examines the soldier. I was there in the examination room, and he says he's a prime candidate. He's young, he's healthy, he's motivated, he's ambitious. But after the appointment, the doctor told me he's not going to touch this person. Not now, at least. Why not? Very good. He said because in order to treat him, his mind has to be there. He has to have the sheer willpower to get better. His mind has to be focused on, I can do this. I will do this. I will succeed. But he's not there yet. He will be there. He will, maybe in a couple of months, whatever, but he's scheduled a follow-up appointment sometime in the summer. But if his mind doesn't tell him, I can do this, I'm not touching him. And the doctor says with a lot of patients, that's what he does. You just cannot treat somebody who doesn't believe in himself, believe in his capabilities, believe in his powers. And this was the problem of the spies. The spies say, there's a verse in Torah which says, they came back and they said, we were like grasshoppers in our eyes and in their eyes. This is what the Torah says. Vanehi be'einenu kachagavim. Vanehi, we were in our eyes like grasshoppers. V'chein hayinu be'einehem, and so too we were in their eyes. Says the Rebbe, I don't understand. How did they know that the giants thought of them as grasshoppers? What do you mean? How does that work exactly?
The way that they looked at them?
They thought maybe the way that, but how did they know?
Well, they didn't. It was like low self-confidence.
Very good. Very good. The Rebbe explains like this. If you think of yourself as a grasshopper, then the other person will think of you as a grasshopper. But if you think of yourself as a Jew who's able to conquer this land, as a proud Jew, then they will think of you as a proud Jew. Now I don't want to get into politics at all, but there was one thing that the Rebbe cared for. Lauren, the chair's outside. Oh, yeah, also. Oh, perfect, you got it. There was a couple of things that the Rebbe cared for and cried about more than anything else in the world. There was two main issues. By the way, the Rebbe, whose Yortzeit 30th anniversary of passing, is coming in about 2 weeks. There was two things he cared about. One of them was Shleimut Haaretz. One of them was giving back land to the Arabs, which the Rebbe completely did not believe in. I don't want to get into the political situation of it, but one thing the Rebbe said is like this. The world will respect Jews who respect themselves. When a Jew is proud and stands firm and tall and says, this is my land, the non-Jews will respect that. But if the Jew is like, maybe it's my land, maybe it's not my land, the non-Jews do not respect that. These are the Rebbe's words. The Rebbe said in 1967, when Israel conquered the land back, they already started then. The non-Jews didn't even ask for the land back, so to speak, and they were ready. But the point the Rebbe tried to make over and over and over is Jews, when we stand firm and proud and strong, that is when we are respected. You want to make a difference in the world, you want to fight anti-Semitism, so there's many things you can do. You can go out and protest, you can counter-protest, you can fight, you can punch, you can do a lot of things. But with the Rebbe's unrelenting, unwavering call in the face of anti-Semitism was always the same thing. You stand firm as proud Jews. You add another mitzvah and another mitzvah and another mitzvah, and you encourage everybody around you to do another mitzvah and another mitzvah and another mitzvah. That is the answer for anti-Semitism. Because non-Jews respect Jews who respect themselves. We are supposed to be a light unto the nations. It's called Tikkun Olam. Tikkun Olam means to fix the world. That is our mission, that is our purpose. And I want to read for you the Rebbe's words because they're so powerful. And this is what he says. At the end of the 40 years, right, when the Jews had already died, Moses is telling the Jews about the land of Israel, right? And he says to them the same words the spies say. Look what he says to them. He says, to them with, I find it here, one second, I got the sources here. Yeah. He says, the people in the land of Israel are giants, and it's going to be hard for you. It's going to be difficult for you. This is the same words the spies said. Moses even says more dramatically, they are difficult to conquer. Like what? But then Moses adds one thing. He says, "V'yadata hayom ki Hashem Elokecha hu aver lefanecha." The secret to success is to know that God is going in front of you. Hu yashmidem, he will fight them. Hu yachlem lefanecha. What translating this into 2024 means like this. Naturally speaking, Israel has no chance of survival. Our enemies are stronger than us. They are. They are more numerous than us. They are stronger than us. They are more powerful than us. And it's the whole world that hates us. We have no ability to defend ourselves. We don't. I know we think that IDF is powerful. I'm very familiar with the IDF. The IDF is powerful and is wonderful, but we have no chance to fight our enemies. This is what the spies actually said. We have no chance to fight our enemies. They are giants, they're stronger than us, they're more powerful than us. Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran and the axis of evil and all our enemies and all the anti-Semites all over the world are stronger than us. We are only 16 million Jews in the entire universe. We are not that strong. The Chinese and the Russians and the Iranians and the French, they are all more numerous than us, and there's a lot more haters than the ones who love us. But we have a secret weapon. In the Rebbe's words like this. Moshe Rabbeinu misaper barichas adibu uvefratus or is chozek hagoyim. Moshe Rabbeinu, at the end of Devarim, when he enters into Israel, he explains much more at length about how powerful the nations of the world are. Kedei lelamed es mailas haYehudi, in order to teach the advantage of the Jew. There's one thing the Jew has that they don't have. Shal af koyach hagoyim agdolim ve'atzumim, that despite the tremendous power, the sheer strength of the nations of the world, ve'ha'uvda, and the fact, shal piteva enenu yecholim, by natural means we cannot overpower them. Despite our F-16s, despite the American money flowing into us or not flowing into us, despite all that, we are not stronger than them. But despite that, Oimrim la Yehudim, we tell the Jews, Loi, no. Yesh lochem ma'ila yoseh gdoila, you have a greater advantage than them. Vatem ken yecholim lehem, and you can overpower them. Mishum shehavaya elokecha hu aver lefecha, because we have a secret weapon called Almighty God. God Almighty is our strength, is our Savior, is our power, and He protects us. Ve'etzem ha'uvda sheyesh b'Yehudi ha'achlata shu menatzeach otam, and the very fact that a Jew believes that he could conquer them, tigroim loy ligbor aleim, that will cause that he will be able to defeat them. That line is the most powerful line of the Shir. The fact that you believe you can conquer them means you can conquer them. The problem with the spies was they didn't believe they could overcome and overpower the nations of the world, and therefore they couldn't. If you believe you can, you can. And if you believe you cannot, you cannot. What we need to do is strengthen our belief in the Almighty God that we can. And then we can. And this is a lesson for every Jew, every time and every place. That means, in June of 2024, this is the lesson for us. The Torah doesn't negate the power of the Goy, of the non-Jew. The non-Jew is more powerful than us, even in 2024. 1,000 years ago, 2,000, 3,000, and 4,000 years ago. The Germans, the Stalins, the Inquisition, they were all stronger than us. We don't deny that. They are stronger than us. Because if we were stronger than them, the Jew would go out on the streets with our tanks and Merkava and all that, and the non-Jews would fly away. Yesh goyim doilim v'atzumim. The non-Jews are more powerful than us. Nevertheless, do not be afraid. Because God Almighty gives us the strength, the ability to prevail, to overcome, and to persevere. Ve'adrab, on the contrary, from this very fact that there's a non-Jew, it's proven that you have the ability to win over. Because God says, I only demand according to your strength. So you can do it. So the message from the spies is, we need to believe that we can. And if you actually look closely at the wording, Moses sent the spies to spy out the land but not to draw conclusions. Tell me what's there. Tell me, are the cities big? Are the cities fortified? Are there big people there? Are there giants there? Just tell me facts. But to draw your own conclusions wasn't your thing. Because a Jew needs to know, even today, if you look at Hamas and Hezbollah and you start being afraid, that's not your job. Your job is not to draw conclusions. The conclusion God already told us. You can win. I'm asking you now how to win. Again, the spies were not asked if they could conquer Israel. They were asked how to conquer Israel. But they came back and they said, they got confused with their mission. They said, we don't know if we can conquer Israel. And today also, our mission is not to think and to ponder and to pontificate if we can survive, if we can conquer Hezbollah, if we can conquer Iran. That God already told us. I'm doing that for you. Israel is the safest place in the world. Right now on April 6th, when Iran attacked us, this was one of the greatest miracles equivalent to the Six-Day War. Iran threw hundreds of missiles. I mean, the fact that nobody was killed or injured, it's a miracle. So, as Jews, we are not asked if we can prevail. Israel is the safest place. So we're saying about the story. So a lot of people at that Pesach were afraid to go to Israel, right? Many people canceled their flights to Israel. I think about half people went to Israel, half people canceled their flights. So a lot of people ask me questions. As a rabbi, can I go to Israel? Should I go to Israel? What do you think? And I was able to answer them. Come inside, we got chairs right here.
Yeah.
There's chairs outside. Oh, you want? There's a lot of chairs outside. We're just going to bring them in. Just pull that in. Yeah, perfect. So a lot of people ask me, should we go to Israel? So I rely always on the Rebbe's advice. In 1991, when the Scud war broke out, people asked the Rebbe, should I go to Israel? And the Rebbe said, by the way, only 2 countries have this thing. I'll tell you the other countries in a second. But the Rebbe said about Israel, the verse says, Eretz asher tamid einei Hashem elokecha ba mereshit shana ad acharit shana. Israel is a place that the eyes of God are there from the beginning of the earth till the end of the earth. It's the safest place in the world. Go there. And 39 Scud missiles hit Israel and nobody, thank God, miracles. So I said to the people, the Rebbe said this, go to Israel. And obviously we realize that Israel is the safest place. By the way, which other country has such a claim to fame? Anybody can guess? There's one other country that the Rebbe consistently said is safe. It's safe. It's safe. Take a wild guess.
America?
Where?
Here?
About America, by the way, Elie Wiesel was a post-Holocaust survivor, and in the 1950s he came to the Rebbe and he asked him, do you think the Holocaust can happen again in America? And the Rebbe's response was 2 words.
Tomorrow in the morning?
Tomorrow morning, that's what the Rebbe said. But the Rebbe did say, even though it could happen tomorrow morning, God would never let the Holocaust happen again. Lo takum pamayim tzara b'Yisrael, he wouldn't let it happen twice. But there's one other country, where am I from? Can you detect my accent?
South Africa.
The only other country that has this claim to fame is South Africa. South Africa, consistently, the Jews, including my father, asked many times, should we stay in South Africa? Should we emigrate? This is like a conversation in South Africa since I was born. On Shabbos table, is it safe? Should we emigrate? Should we not? Whatever. There were 120,000 Jews in the peak. Now there's about 50,000. But the community is still strong, and the Rebbe would time and time again say the Jews in South Africa will be safe until Mashiach comes, and even afterwards. Again and again and again. By the way, there's one of the rabbis who was there. His name's Koppelbacher. So I remember growing up, he received a direct blessing from the Rebbe. It's going to be safe till Mashiach comes. So a lot of people in South Africa, we were attacked. Like, for example, my mother, when I was about 13 years old, so it was a Shabbat morning, Saturday morning, and my father, unusual, but he told me and all my siblings, come with me to the shul, to the synagogue. My father's a rabbi in Orange Grove Shul, and he told everybody, let's go to shul. And normally he would take 1 or 2 siblings, and the rest would come with my mother. But he took everybody. Now our house in South Africa is not like this house. We have a fence which is, guarding the whole acre or 2 acres of property, barbed wires, panic buttons. You push a panic button, every single gate, every single window is barred, barbed wires, barbed gates. There's security. You have to get in. You need like 10 keys just to get into my house. When I get in, I need 10 keys. The exterior gate, this gate, this gate. Even when we sleep in the bedrooms, there's actually a security gate in the actual bedrooms. Like in case a thief comes into the house, so let him steal from the dining room and the living room, but at least the rooms he won't be able to get into. So this is how I grew up. So I remember it was Saturday morning, and I'm in the synagogue praying, just the beginning of Musaf, and suddenly somebody comes and taps my father on the shoulder, whispers something. My father grabs his talis, puts it on the thing, shouts to me, "You continue the service, you the chazan, you the everything, and he runs out of shul. And turns out 2 guys broke into my parents' house that Saturday morning. They broke into all the security, everything. And the only way of that happening is there was an inside job. The maid must have let them in. There's no other way to get into our house. There's nothing. And they tied my mother up. They beat her up. I remember I came back from home at about 12:31. My mother had a hole the size of a golf ball, like right here, like literally like a big, massive wound. There was a knife this size on the floor that they had left over. They tied her up, beat her up. Thank God they didn't do anything crazy. And she's alive to tell the story, and a little bit of trauma and whatever. The next week, I remember my father brought these massive 3 trained killer dogs, 2 German Shepherds and 1 English Mastiff. Those of you who know dogs know that an English Mastiff is this humongous dog. Actually, our neighbor had boxers. You know what a boxer dog is? Boxers, and the boxer used to jump over the fence into our property all the time. And my father would call the neighbor, "Get your dog out of here." And the neighbor's like, "What can I do? He's jumping over." Anyway, we got this dog, Misty was her name. She was a ferocious bulldog, English Mastiff. And as soon as that male boxer jumped over the fence, she warned him. I got to say, she warned him a couple of times, but he didn't listen. He jumped over one time. She took him, she strangled him to death. She put him down for 20 minutes, strangled him to death. And the neighbor called my father. He says, "What did you do to my dog?" He says, "It's in my property. What do you want?" So she was a massive, humongous, ferocious dog. We never had any problems after that. But the bottom line is, my father was one of these people who was told by the Rebbe, it's going to be good till Mashiach comes. So this guy, Koppelbacher, who also got a blessing from the Rebbe, he was in his store one time. 2 guys with AK-47s came into his store. They held him up, and they told him, "You have 10 seconds left to live. We're going to shoot you." And what goes through a guy's mind when he's told, "I got 10 seconds left to live"? See, he has an unshakable, firm belief in God. And he remembers the Rebbe's words. The Rebbe told him, not just word of mouth, told him, it's going to be good for the Jews in South Africa until Mashiach comes and even after. And he said, as far as I know, Mashiach hasn't come and it's still good. If I die, that's not exactly good. So that was going through his mind. And they left him alone, and they left. So there were issues in South Africa with our feelings, how we felt, but South Africa, welcome. Oh, you got a chair. Okay, but South Africa was always one of those, the other country, as far as I know, there's only 2 countries like this who were given an explicit blessing that it's safe. So Israel is one of these countries. So getting back to wrapping up this point of the class, is that if we believe we are impenetrable, if we believe we can do it, we can. And the answer to anti-Semitism, yes, we need to protest, yes, we need to write letters to the congressman, but that shouldn't be the biggest focus. The biggest focus is to walk around proud with a yarmulke on your head, with tzitzit on your, to keep Shabbat. You want to fight anti-Semitism? Keep Shabbat. You want to fight anti-Semitism? Come to shul on Shabbat morning, put on tefillin, light candles. That's how you fight it, because that's how you bring out your pride, your belief that you could do it. Because the spies, their biggest problem was, they didn't believe they could do it. But if you believe you could do it, you can. Okay? And I want to just mention up one more aspect to this whole thing. But so far so good. Any questions?
Yeah.
Yes?
Wait, did he say why South Africa?
Did he say why South Africa? He did not. But the reason why he mentioned South Africa is because he kept on being asked about South Africa. Because South Africa, there was the Lesotho riots in 1978 and then 82, and then when the regime, I actually grew up. I remember in the 1980s there were signs in the parks, whites only. There were public restrooms, whites only. Colored, blacks weren't allowed. I remember I grew up like this. It was complete racism I remember it.
Right now, it's not looking good.
No, it's Africa, it's still looking good. But in 1991, 92,
I was just there. They said a lot of them are talking about like with the current election. Like, I mean, obviously Hashem's in control of everything, but that they're all like thinking of getting out of there.
So this has been the talk of a Shabbat table, Shabbat lunch for Jews in South Africa all the time. But specifically now with this, I'm familiar because my sisters all live there, my parents live there, and I go to South Africa all the time. But the government now, by the way, they had to bring in another political party. So it's fine now. It's actually good now. So I don't know how long ago you were there, but the last 2 weeks things are fine now. But in 1991, 92, when Mandela was being released from prison, everybody was thinking there's going to be civil war going on, and these were real harsh times. I remember it. And the Rebbe again gave his blessing. It's going to be good till Mashiach comes and even after. So the Chabad rabbis are there and telling everybody they could stay and it's safe and it's fine. And yeah, there'll be Jews who immigrate, that's fine. But why South Africa? Because he was asked, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, there were rabbis in Europe who also said to stay.
There were rabbis in Europe who also said to stay. Okay? Where are you going to run to?
I don't really answer.
That's why we have this shiur today. Because Israel is the safest place, and if you believe you can, then you can. If you believe that we are here for a purpose, we're here for a mission, we're here to fill the world, tikkun olam, to fill the world with goodness and kindness, we will do it. Yeah.
So is the point to run to Israel now
Or to?
Not if you're in South Africa.
South Africa.
What's the trouble for in this moment?
Okay, so that's actually the next point I want to get to, but I'm going to mention it now briefly. So, what is our mission in the world? Where should we live? Right? Should we all live in Israel because Israel is the safest place? Should we all just make aliyah, or should we stay? I mean, the reality is Israel, yes, has the most amount of Jews, but America has 6 million Jews, 5.5 million Jews, whatever that number is. New York tri-state area has 2 million Jews. But I would say the answer is like this. The answer goes to, why are we here? Why are we alive? What are we doing here? God, we believe in God. God created us. We're here for a purpose. We're here for a mission. And the answer is, when God gave us the Torah at the mountain of Sinai, He gave us our why. He gave us our reason for existence. Our reason is to permeate the world with Torah and mitzvot, to make this world a holy place. So if you are living in Jerusalem, then you need to permeate Jerusalem with Torah and mitzvot. But if you are living in New York, then you should fill your surroundings in New York with Torah and mitzvot. If you're living in LA, you should do it there. Now, if it happens to be that an opportunity comes up for a job or for something else to go to live in Israel, then yes, you should probably go there. But I wouldn't say that you have to live in Israel because of the situation. Do you know what I mean? I find myself in New York, in Manhattan. I have no plans to leave. I am here. I'm a Chabad rabbi. I was sent to the Upper East Side. I will be here until the day Mashiach comes. As long as there's one Jew here, I will be here. As well as every single one of the 6,000 Chabad rabbis in the whole world, in Mauritius, in London, in Paris, in Melbourne, in Sydney. Because we're here as a mission. We're here to permeate the world and make it a better place. But wrapping this point up into the spies story. The spies had one more thing. In the desert, what did they eat? Man from heaven, right? What did they drink? They had a water in a miraculous way. They had water. So a miracle happened. They had food. A miracle happened. They had water, and they had shelter. So what did they do all day? Right? They didn't need to go to business school. They didn't need to. They didn't need to become lawyers or doctors or hedge fund managers. They had everything they wanted. They had. Right? If they woke up in the morning and they had food outside their doorstep. So what did they do all day long? They were studying Torah all day long. That is what they did. They never had an army because they didn't need an army, because there were clouds of glory protecting them. God protected them from any enemies that tried to throw arrows at them. God protected them. So what did they do all day long? They studied Torah. So the spies, the deep, deep, deep meaning of the whole story of the spies, why didn't they want to go to Israel? They wanted to stay in the desert. Why do they want to stay in the desert? Because in the desert, they could become closer to God. They could study Torah day and night. They woke up in the morning, they studied Torah. They studied Chumash and Mishnah and Gemara. And then they went for lunch, break, and they studied Torah again and again and again. 24 hours a day, they studied Torah and Torah and Torah. That's what they wanted. They felt that in order to cleave to God, in order to become close to God, they should study Torah day and night. Right? So what's wrong with that? Why wouldn't God want to keep them in the desert then? Let's live in the desert till today. Let's go now to 2024. Let's go live in the desert with the man and the water and the clouds of glory. What's wrong with that, right? And Moses said, no, absolutely not. You have it wrong. God doesn't want you to live in the desert. God wants you to go into Israel. And when you go into Israel, you will have to work and sweat hard for a living. You will become a doctor and a lawyer, and you will become a carpenter and a shoemaker and a seamstress maker. You will have jobs to earn a living. Why? Why does God want that? Doesn't God want us to learn Torah all day long?
Well, that's how you carry it out, I guess.
Carry it out?
Like, the Torah is to learn to do it. So, like, if you're just living on a mountaintop and separating yourself from the whole world, you're not able to carry it out.
Very good. God wants us to live in the physical, mundane, and trivial world. He wants us to sweat hard. He wants us to work hard. He wants us to be tempted by our evil inclination to do sins. And He wants us, despite the difficulties, to permeate this world with Torah and mitzvot, with goodness and kindness. That's what He wants. He wants us to live in Israel. He wants us to have it difficult with the nations of the world, with Hamas and Hezbollah. And He wants us to fight. And thereby doing, we are uplifting the physical, mundane, and trivial world, and we are making it into a home for God. Remember, what is the purpose of the mission of the world? Why we created? To take this world, penetrate it, permeate it with kedusha, with holiness. What are we doing right now in this room? The walls of this place are absorbing the Torah that we are living. We are actually doing what I'm speaking about. The walls over here are absorbing the Torah that we are learning. Every one of us can be in 1,000, we can be watching a beautiful show tonight. There's a beautiful debate later on tonight. I'm sure many of you are going to watch it. Right? But what are we doing now? We are studying Torah. We are overcoming our challenges, our hurdles, our trials, and we are studying Torah. This is the ultimate fulfillment of what Moses said the spies did wrong. This is our why, this is our purpose, this is our mission, this is why we were created. And today you have this debate, by the way. You have people who say, let's live in Mea Sharim, let's seclude ourselves from the world, and let's study Torah day and night. Now there is something to it. I'm not going to get into the debate, the political debate of Haredim studying versus being in the army. Not because I don't believe in arguing about it, because I believe it's not a winning argument. Every time I argue about it, I get nowhere. So I'm not going to argue about that. But there are people who believe in that. And the Torah says in this week's parasha that God wants you to live in Manhattan, to live in the world, and make it kedusha. When you go to your workplace and you say over this exact Torah thought, you're conquering the world, you're making it holy. In your workplace, you say a blessing over food. In your workplace, you encourage your friend to come to a Torah class. That is a living embodiment of what we're talking about. So we should all learn from the spies. To recap, we learned 3 ideas of the spies. Idea number 1 that they did wrong was, and you remember the first thing I said?
Not what they said, but how they said it.
Very good. Not what they said, it's how they said it. Very good. Number 2?
I didn't believe.
Didn't believe they could do it. You believe you can. And number 3, our mission, our purpose is to permeate the world and make it into Kedusha. That is the official part of the Shir.